Hello, my name is Victoria, and let me start by saying that I'm a very concrete and outspoken person, and therefore, using a particular example based on one of our projects, I'm going to tell you how decisions are made at our company and why the choice shouldn't be only in the field of best of breed or, on the contrary, self-written IT software. And before we start, a few words about MK. Still where I am from, and it is necessary to say that OMK is Europe's biggest manufacturer of high-quality steel products, such as large diameter pipes, railway wheels, and automobile springs. OMK has formed an idea that the supply chain management function has the goal to maximize OMK's profits by managing competitive advantages as value within the framework of a three-tier planning system. It is S&OP, MPS, and scheduling. And based on the results of numerous evaluations of our company in the field of SCM, made by Gartner, Accenture, GDA, IBM, Michelin, and others, OMK is at an outstanding level of development of SCM processes. The first level is S&OP. It has a 16 to 18 month horizon. And the main role of aggregate planning is to form a unified course of actions for sales, production, procurement, logistics that meet the rules of managing competitive advantages and maximize profits. The second one is the master production schedule, MPS, and order book management. There is already a horizon based on the availability of a book portfolio of orders. And the main role is to coordinate the actions of sales, production, procurement, logistics in the process of executing of S&OP plan in such a way as to comply with the rules of competitive advantage management. And finally, scheduling on the production task horizon. Its role is to form a production and shipping tasks that meets coordinated plans and controls their execution. Here we want to focus on MPS and scheduling and their role in the company. So a few words about the touch points. MPS. It works with sales, supply raw materials through the order book process, and prepares the input information for scheduling. Scheduling is the main point of interaction is the execution of production. And it forms production tasks and their imperfection or maybe some non-adjustment of these processes affects the indicators that are shown on the slide. And a little more about goals. S&OP goal is margin profits. MPS goals are reliability, responsiveness, and as for scheduling, its goal is to minimize downtimes. Reliability of order execution as a basic value requires coordination of all company departments in the process of order evaluating and executing. The task of coordination is the responsibility of SCM, and accordingly, SCM's responsibility in terms of bringing value to the client. To this end, we also hold SCM committees monthly, where we look at the main KPIs based on the PDCA cycle format, including the interaction with sales, production, procurement, logistics, etc. But it is not enough to look at the indicators only. The main thing, you also need to make decisions. The main thing is to pick those KPIs that give you thoughts and solve problems. If you cannot make decisions on your plan, just throw away this plan. The project's idea was such that it was necessary to combine the model of material flows, the production of rolled metal and pipe products. These are categorically different industries. In one case, rolled metal products are assembled according to chemistry, while a pipeline is assembled according to geometry. And accordingly, the first task is to combine information about rolled metal and pipe products. And the second is to combine scheduling and operational planning in one information field to ensure response speed. And basically, a similar problem in the world practice hasn't been solved anywhere until our project. That is the typical approach of worldwide steel companies is to operate through reserves, inventories, and don't balance. But our Russian market is such that we cannot afford it, and we didn't have a clue in this case, but we were hanging on to hope. The main thing on this slide is that all things mentioned here work. In contrast to the S&OP, which is actually a standalone system, the operational planning level and MPS are very strongly integrated with all systems. That is the integration of more than 10 systems within the project scope. As in, even from technical point of view, this is a rather complicated undertaking. And if aggregate planning can be launched rather quickly and painlessly from the point of view of IT systems, because it is really a standalone solution, then in the case of an E2E MPS and scheduling project I'm talking about, everything is no longer so simple. There is already an integration with all accounting and execution systems. The question arises whether it was possible to start all the project earlier from the point of view of SEM's history of at OMK. Why did we start all the project only after a little over 10 years? There are certain reasons for this. In fact, the project mentioned in the previous slides is successful and it works. But it has to be said that more than 90% of projects in this area, in fact, for management and consultants, end in failure. Why do you think it happens so? And the reason for this failure is profound. In other words, there are two extreme points or options. Either we say that we're great, we have gorgeous processes, and we just need to automate something for complete happiness. Or we say that we want a system that would take everything into account and would only press the magic buttons. You can see a big red button and receive the salary on our bank cards. Meanwhile, the deepest reason lies not in the area of the information systems and not in data, as consultants often say now, that your data is not ready, and that's a big problem. We'll add this slide because it doesn't make sense, really. It's a play game. The problem is closer, and it is about people and change management. You can see here the morpheus from the matrix with the two blue pills on the slide. And this is no coincidence. If you remember, he offered a choice of blue one, that is to remain a slave to the illusion, and red one, that is to become a slave to reality. But in our case, there were two blue ones. It means that both the first and the second are just an illusion. Next, I have 3 short slides on which I first think first from the point of view of change management. We show you our way, our path, and this path from almost 0 point to where we are now. And the key is to change people, the target audience, how long it took, and what was behind it in terms of IT, of course. The typical situation is when planning is regarded as forecasting. But you everybody know that planning is not forecasting. And the plan is what we are going to do. As in the SCORE model, a course of action. And the forecast is what we think, how everything will turn out. The forecast does not imply doing. In other words, planning is perceived either as forecasting or as an attempt to model actual reality as accurately as possible, or simply as some kind of obligation. That is a report or some document for top management, for example. So whatever. And decision making should be based on decisions, not vice versa. And this requires a certain responsibility, of course, a certain decision making. It means there are also speed questions. The speed of decision making is definitely slowing down. Decisions need to be made as late as possible. And decisions must be implemented, of course. That is, it is necessary to delay making decision as long as possible to some critical point. But after the decision has been made, you, of course, execute it, no matter how good or bad it seems to you. In your life, if you don't do what you can do, there is really no problem. But if you don't do what you can do, you're a real disaster. And here, of course, the question arises, what the decision making is. And if you break away from the individual, then in decision making, the question is in something agreed upon, shared by a certain group of people, and perhaps they don't like it. One of the criteria for a good decision, not sufficient, but of course obligatory, is that the right decision doesn't suit everyone. I hope you get it. Planning as we're planning is the similar story, but slightly different, of course. The fact that there is no planning exists. There is always only replanning based on the data from the previous period. For all three slides, we received support for the top management through their involvement in the process. And it was not an abstract support, but direct participation. And the change in the approach of decision-making made primarily by them. Because if the leader is a snob, then his subordinate is the same. And the leader always sets an example, of course, even if it is silent or subconscious. How he behaves, so his employees do, whether we like it or not. So only such kind of configuration survives in some fundamental things. At this stage, we already had more than one IT system, but a whole park, not only SNOP, but also levels below. And one more thing, characteristics of a new type of planner, which you see here, such as a relatively young age with a limited period of work and SCM function. So it it is not the one who plans to stay until the retirement. Of course, it should be active, with a high level of self-motivation, with the ability to set a task for oneself and to solve it. Of course, won't go down without a fight. And all these make certain psychology and behavior. You understand that the new generation is not afraid to change something. They have different values from us. Ideally, there should be no dependence on specific people. If necessary, it is possible to renew or to expand the staff as soon as possible. And at the same time, all employees of the SCM function are key from the point of view of activity. No, we couldn't have started earlier. Things were not planning out on our way. And a few words about the last thesis, that SCM is becoming an integral part of the operational core. After all, SCM is a relatively young function, even on a global scale. And it is worth saying a few words about the differences between SCM and logistics. That is, logistics, procurement, production, sales, and primordial are really primordial functions since business establishment. You, of course, know it and understand. And the SCM's role is to maximize profits through value management, as I said before, within the framework of a three-tier planning system. And that means that it becomes an integral part of the operational core. It is actually in terms of changing people. In other words, people, planners, move from the imaginary world for the rest of the other people to the real world. Thus, this implementation is carried out at the level of people. As a function, if before this project, we were reported either to production or were in the commercial department or sales department, we were in such a rocky place. And finally, at the end of last year, we already directly reported to the board's chairman. And now we are subordinate to the general director, and we have true opportunity to perform balancing function to purchasing, sales, production, and so on. Could we have started earlier? And why is such a journey possible only with an altered consciousness? Here I emphasize once again that the issue is not in systems, processes, indicators, and organization. It is in people. So first of all, the slide shows a quote from Tarkovsky. Don't want to read it. You can read it by yourself. And the bottom line is that people usually try to change everything around them, but at the same time, they remain the same. As the consultants, advisors take care of your subordinates and team changes, take care of changes in processes, and on the top of these changes in the organization. But it's all nonsense, because changing an employee is easy. Changing a team is a snap. And the hardest thing, and we sometimes forget it, is to change ourselves. This task must be solved first of all. You can go on with it. And what is strategy? I mean, real strategy. It is not a definition of the road leading to the achievement of the goal. Only naive people think so. The real strategy is to provide all roads lead to the goal. A real strategy should be able to do this. In the above example, we show that we started the project only when our key team lost the choice question. When we are faced with a choice, The choice arises from our shortcomings, our underdevelopment. And the criterion is a matter of zero choice. Choosing one of the options is, in such cases, is a dead end. And there is no way to automate house. You need to understand it. We've been changing people's mind for 10 years, and the choice dilemma has disappeared after it. In general, if we talk about the absence of the need and the possibility of choice in binary issues, we can give examples such as the United States versus Russia, the government versus opposition, to put life on pause or not, whether or not vaccinate against COVID, both on the side of that particular person and the whole humanity. To destroy it or not COVID within the entire humanity. So there's already a lot on our shoulders. And have you ever felt like you've hit the rock bottom? We are losing the word to ourselves, and it was an eye-opener for us. It was really game-changing. These questions are fundamentally insoluble in two-dimensional space. And there is a zero correct answer. And the only way to solve them is to change until the question disappears. There are different stages of human development. First, you can see here, it is youth. When a person cares about the answers. Second is maturity. When a person cares about the question themselves. And there are right and wrong questions. And at the second stage of maturity, he is concerned about the possibility of asking questions themselves, how to ask a question and which one. And the third one is wisdom. So it is the possibility of asking a question. When he realizes that the question do not help. So at this third stage, some questions disappear or become impossible. Some questions arise that can occur at this first or second stage. In other words, the project I'll tell before can be done without these people from the third stage. It can be done with the people in the third stage only. And so, to conclude, the solution depends on where the observer is. So, life have twists and turns. It has ups and downs, stuck in around times and extraordinary times. And really, an easy fix. The main thing here is that no one considers the genesis of a person. Everyone talks about the development of processes, about the systems, about organizations. And the really strategic approach is that it is necessary to deal with not just processes or systems. It is absolutely necessary to grow up Superman, to grow up your people, and just muster up the courage and give it a go. Thank you.